This video is going to be about the hidden power of focus. So I'm going to pull up a supplemental document again. Like, this video alone is going to change so many lives. Well, I guess whoever watches it, their lives. But yeah, we're going to hop right into it. What if I told you that the single skill separating the top 1% of performers, the Elon Musk, the Kobe Bryants, the Steve Jobs of the world from everyone else isn't IQ? It's not talent. It's not who your parents are or how much money you started with. It's focus, but not the kind of focus your third grade teacher yelled at you about. I'm talking about 3 types of specific focus that when you develop all 3, they completely change the trajectory of your life. And most people don't even know that 2 of them exist. So like, this has been an amalgamation of a lot of books that I've read over the years. I'll break down the most important ideas in it with real life examples from business, neuroscience, and human psychology. So buckle up. So here's the problem, right? Here's the uncomfortable truth. The modern world is at war with your attention. Right now, there are entire teams of engineers, the smartest people on earth, whose sole job is to steal your focus and sell it to advertisers, right? Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, yes, even this platform itself is engineered to hijack your attention and keep you in a shallow, half-present scrolling loop. And it's working, honestly. You know, studies show that the average person switches tasks every 47 seconds on a computer. 47 seconds. Just let that sink in. You can't build a company, you can't write a novel, you can't compose a symphony, or master any skill in 47-second sprints. You just can't. So what's the cost, right? The cost is our attention has become the most valuable economic resource of the 21st century. And if you can't control yours, someone else will profit from it. But here's the good news. Focus is a skill. You can build it. And I'm going to break down in this video how the 3 distinct types are going to unlock a different dimension of your potential. So moving on. What are the 3 types? Think of it like a lens system. So where's my phone? I have my phone here in my pocket. Think about it. There's 3 lenses on this phone, right? Each one kind of does a different thing. And that's how the iPhone is built. But all together, they help you focus and get a more clear picture whenever you are taking a photo. So here are the 3 types of focus. The first one is your inner focus. It's your ability to look inward, to understand your own mind, your own emotions, and to direct your attention intentionally at the task in front of you. The second focus is other focus. Your ability to genuinely tune into other people, right? So to read the room, to feel what someone else is feeling, and to connect with the world around you. Now, obviously, you can tell why this one's important. Number 3, you have your outer focus. This is your ability to zoom out and see the bigger picture, to read systems, spot patterns, and understand the forces shaping the world before everyone else does. So if you miss any of these, you will hit a ceiling. Let me show you exactly what that looks like and what it costs you. So the first focus is inner focus, right? So this is what inner focus actually is. Inner focus is actually your capacity to direct your own attention, to look inward and actually understand what's happening in your own mind. So pretty much a fancy term for this is metacognition and meta self-awareness. It's pretty much to have thoughts about your own thoughts. Like, I'll give you an example off the top of my head. If right now I was craving McDonald's and I'm having thoughts about a junior chicken, I can think to myself about why I'm having that thought specifically and then alter those thoughts. And now again, in a previous video, I have talked about awareness, but it's thinking about your thinking and awareness of your own awareness. So that's metacognition and meta self-awareness. And this is why it matters. If you can't observe a thing, you can't improve it. You cannot course correct what you don't see. Most people go through life on autopilot, reacting, scrolling, eating, arguing, without ever stepping back and asking why they ever did something. So what am I actually feeling right now? Is what I'm doing right now aligned with what I actually want? Inner focus is the ability to pause and ask those questions. And here's the kicker. The more you develop your inner focus, the deeper you can go in on any skill, any craft, any area of your life, because depth requires sustained, directed attention. There's no shortcut. I'm going to repeat that line again because it's so important. Depth requires sustained, directed attention. It's like, imagine if I told you right now to drill a hole into the wall, but you took the drill and you made 100 1-centimeter holes or 1-millimeter holes. That doesn't do me any good, right? You have to have sustained, directed attention, consistency. There's no shortcut to this, right? So here's the neuroscience behind it. And there's a couple of books. So like a really good one is Daniel Goleman's Focus, Daniel Goleman's Emotional Intelligence and Social Intelligence, as well as Daniel Kahneman's Thinking Fast and Slow. They're all extremely great books that you should read. Malcolm Gladwell also makes a lot of books on this topic. And again, this video is a mixture of all of them that I've actually ended up using in my life, in conjunction to psycho-cybernetics as well as reality transurfing. So there's just some titles of some books that if you really want to like dive deep into it, like I think reality transurfing is like a 700-page book, so it'll take you a while to read it. You can watch this video and you can figure out everything in like 20 to 25 minutes, and I'm actually going to give you actions that helped me change over the past 3 years. So here's the truth, right? Your brain has 2 operating systems running simultaneously. You have system one, which is your amygdala-driven brain. It's bottom-up thinking. It's your limbic brain. So this is your ancient reptilian brain. It's fast, automatic, emotional. It's impulsive. It reacts before your conscious mind even registers what happens or what's happening. So someone cuts you off in traffic and boom, you're already angry before you decided to be, right? This is bottom-up processing. The second system is your prefrontal cortex. This is your newer executive brain. It handles logic, reasoning, impulse control, long-term planning. It's slow, deliberately slow. It pumps the brakes and makes you think before you act. This is top-down processing, right? So it's a newer part of your brain. Stimulated world. System one is running the show almost all of the time. Notifications trigger it. Social media is designed to trigger it. Anger, fear, outrage, content, ads. These all spike your amygdala to get more engagement. So we're literally being trained, literally conditioned to live reactive bottom up in an impulsive state, right? So developing inner focus is how you reclaim control. It's how you activate your prefrontal cortex and start making choices instead of just reacting. So here's an example. And I think this example is from Daniel Goleman's Focus. And he talks about how, like, there's, in one of, like, the most powerful examples that he uses, there's a school in a rough neighborhood. There's high crime, there's high violence. These kids have grown up seeing trauma. And instead of just disciplining them when they act out, the teacher started teaching them a decision-making framework called the traffic light, right? So there's a red light, a yellow light, and a green light. And this is how it works. Let's say a kid bumps into you in the hallway. Your first instinct, your amygdala system one, bottom-up thinking brain, tells you to push back, yell, escalate, to start a fight. That's what every muscle memory you've built tells you to do. And this is what they taught the students, right? So number one, red light, stop, don't react yet. Just pause and take 2 seconds to register what is actually happening, right? And then you move on to yellow light. Generate 5 alternative responses to the situation. So, like, could you just walk away? Could you tell a teacher? Could you maybe have a conversation with this person and find out that maybe it was a mistake, they didn't bump into you on purpose? And then green light is, okay, now you pick the best option from that list that you thought about it and act on it, right? And so what were the results of this? So the results was that crime rates among these teenagers in these schools dropped significantly. There was less suspensions, less expulsions. These kids were becoming better at conflict resolution, at relationships, at life, not because they got smarter, because they learned to activate their top-down brain before their bottom-up brain ran away with them. And here's the thing, this isn't just for kids in rough neighborhoods. This is the framework every executive, athlete, parent, every human being should be using. The pause is where your power lives, right? So how do you build inner focus? Now, obviously at the beginning of this video, I told you guys, I'm gonna give you guys some actual actionable tips on how to do this that I've implemented that have completely changed my life. So the way to fix this is to develop mindfulness. Now, you might be asking yourself, what's mindfulness? And how do you develop it? Mindfulness is pretty much equanimity, to slow down, to think, and to be able to differentiate. So it's to develop the metacognition and the meta self-awareness that I previously talked about. And how do you do this? Meditation. And now there's 3 different types of meditation. I feel like people seldom ever talk about this when they do talk about attention and meditation. So we're gonna break down all 3 types and which one you should practice and how you can practice them in real life applicable situations in your own life. So meditation number 1, this is focused attention. This is the most basic form. This is pretty much what everybody tells you to do. Every other YouTube video you've probably watched. You pick a single point, like the space between your eyes, the sensation of your breath, right? Like focus on your breathing, a spot on the wall. And what you do is you hold your attention there. When your mind wanders, and it definitely will, it always does, you just bring it back, right? So like, if you're sitting there, you start thinking about something somebody said to you, you're like, oh, wait, I gotta go back to what I was focusing on, and you come back, right? No judgment, just return. Think of it like a bicep curl for your attention. So every time your mind drifts, you kind of just bring it back. That's 1 rep. Over weeks and months, your capacity to do this gets longer and longer, and your focus grows. Your prefrontal cortex literally gets thicker. It's scientifically documented. Moving on to meditation number 2. This is loving kindness and gratitude, and it's love generating meditation is what we call it. And this one, I feel like everybody also knows this because it's been really popular on social media for a couple of years now. It's essentially just like gratitude journaling, I guess you could say, right? You just be happy and be positive and be thankful for the things that are in your life. Like you woke up today, be grateful for it, right? You're breathing oxygen. Maybe you're not disabled, you're able-bodied, be happy for that. People you love are alive, be happy for that, right? So like there's a study that they did on salespeople who are successful or the most successful in their industry, and they came up with a ratio of positive to negative thoughts. So on average, the best salespeople had 2.9 positive thoughts for every 1 negative thought. So that's like the golden ratio. There was an upper end to this as well that I'd like to throw in here, just for, just for the fact. I think around 7 to 10 is when people become too giddy to get stuff done. So you don't want to go like that far off the positive end, right? So loving kindness meditation is how you shift that ratio of 2.9 to 1 negative thoughts. And you sit and intentionally direct feelings of warmth, gratitude, and care, first to yourself, the people you love, to strangers, even to people you struggle with. It sounds soft, but it's not. The research on this is serious. The happier and more grateful that you are, the more your brain literally looks for good things in the world. The opposite is also true, right? The more you consume negative content, the more your brain is trained to scan for threats. You are what you mentally consume, quite literally. Meditation type 3. This is called open awareness. This is the most advanced. Instead of focusing on one thing, you open your attention to everything. The sound of birds, the feeling of air in your lungs, the warmth of the sun. You're not zoning in, you're expanding out. You're pretty much becoming aware of your awareness itself. In reality transurfing, Vadim Zeland calls this the rustle of the morning stars. So like when you look up at the sky, the stars are still there, the moon is still visible, but because it's light, you can't see it. But imagine to hear the sounds of the rustle of the morning stars. And that's what it is. It's metacognition and meta self-awareness. So this is incredibly rare in the modern world because we're trained to consume, to scroll, to jump, to just sit and be fully present without an agenda, without a screen. Most people haven't experienced that in years, right? And this is funny because I was at a bookstore yesterday and I can't believe they still make those books that are like the bathroom readers. Who the hell is doing that anymore? Like, I remember when I was a kid, I used to have like a couple. Or like you're so bored when you're on the toilet, you're like reading the like the stuff that's on the shampoo bottle, right? You're reading all the disclaimers and all this stuff, like how to lather it, what you should be doing, and the instructions on it, because you're so bored because we didn't have phones, right? And like, man, I remember when like Game Boy came out and like you'd be sitting on the toilet playing Game Boy, or when PSP came out. I was still a really young kid. I think PSP was like my first actual like colored screen handheld device. I think like PSP came out in like 2002, maybe 2004 and 5. It was actually pretty advanced now that I think back to it, right? So moving on, type 2. And this is your other focus. So the first one is that we covered was inner focus. Other focus is essentially emotional and social intelligence applied through attention. It's your ability to tune in, to genuinely fully to other people. What are they feeling? What aren't they saying? What do they actually need? Like reading their body language. Now, obviously, without me even like delving any deeper into this, you already know why this is important, right? This changes your relationships. You're a better leader. This can completely change your marriage, your friendships, and like everything in between, right? We're social creatures. No human being becomes successful in isolation. Every business deal, every romantic relationship, every friendship, every team, they all run on a currency of human connection. And you cannot connect with someone you're not paying attention to. So here, there's some examples. And this is from Daniel Goleman's book as well. And I found this one like extremely relatable, not for myself, but I actually know guys like this. So there's a story about a young guy who's incredibly gifted with technology, right? Like he can master any software. He's great with computers. He can play this Minesweeper game and he can do it in under 90 seconds and clean all the mines out. And he started playing poker eventually and he became elite and he became really good and he made extreme amounts of money playing poker. So his inner focus is extraordinary. But here's the problem. He had like no friends. He couldn't get any girlfriends. Going on dates was a disaster, right? And he couldn't read people in real life because he spent so much time just dealing with technology, staring at the screen, and like, I guess playing poker where you have to stay quiet. So he couldn't pick up on any social cues. He was so heads down in his own world that the entire dimension of other focus had gone completely undeveloped. So like this is more common than you think, right? Especially with this new generation of kids who grew up with a lot of technology. It's like we live in a culture that glorifies the lone genius, right? The hustle till you drop solo operator. Research consistently shows that people with strong social intelligence have more fulfilling lives, better mental health, greater career longevity, and stronger networks that open doors that talent never could alone. So here's another example. And this was one of my favorite examples in the book because we've kind of glorified the story of Steve Jobs, right? So like the story was about Steve Jobs versus Steve Wozniak. So one of the most famous case studies is like, or the lack of it, is Steve Jobs himself, right? In 1985, Jobs was ousted from his own company, Apple. The company he co-founded and poured his soul into voted him out. And you might ask yourself why? And the truth was because his emotional intelligence was so underdeveloped that he was destroying morale in the company. Jobs was a visionary genius, inner focus off the charts. Outer focus, extraordinary, but other focus, terrible. He was famously brutal with employees. He publicly humiliated people in meetings and created an atmosphere of fear. His inability to manage relationships almost ended everything, right? Like there's a story, actually, yeah, there's one story that I like to go into. I remember I was reading in a completely different book somewhere where I guess the engineers at Apple had come up with the first iPod and Jobs wanted to make it smaller to them. So he grabbed the prototype in front of these guys, like walked over to the fish tank because they said that they couldn't make it any smaller. And he dropped the iPod, like the prototype these engineers were working endlessly on, dropped it into the fish tank, and like obviously like little bubbles came out and the iPod sank to the bottom. And Steve Jobs was like, you see that? That's air. pull the air out, and that's how we're gonna make it smaller. And like the engineers were just like flabbergasted, right? Like, dude, what the hell? This guy just took all their hard work and just threw it into the fish tank. You compare that to Steve Wozniak, the technical genius behind the Apple computer. Like, Woz is loved, he's warm, he's humble, he's generous. He left Apple earlier and more quietly, but he was never ousted because he understood people. The lesson here is that inner and outer focus without other focus is a ticking time bomb. You can be brilliant and still blow up your empire. That's how important all three of these different types of focuses are. So moving on to outer focus, part number 3. So what is outer focus, right? Outer focus is your ability to zoom all the way out and see the systems and patterns, the forces that are operating in the world around you, often invisibly. It's the strategic mind, the systems thinker, the person who sees around corners. And this is increasingly rare because the modern world keeps your attention locked into the micro. Your phone shows you your notifications, your feed, your messages. Your concerns become smaller and smaller. Meanwhile, massive forces are reshaping industries, societies, and the planet. And most people don't see them coming until they've already been swept away. And there's a couple of case studies from this part in multiple different books. And I found like 2 or 3 of these just like absolutely mind-blowing. And number 1 is BlackBerry and RIM. So research in motion. If you're old enough, you remember Blackberries and like their keyboards, their physical keyboards. So in the early 2000s, BlackBerry was the undisputed king of mobile. Right? Presidents used it, Wall Street used it. The BlackBerry was the iPhone of its day. Leadership was so focused inward on optimizing their existing product, on quarterly numbers, on their internal culture of success, that they completely missed what was happening outside. The world was moving towards touchscreens, apps, ecosystems. Apple wasn't just making a phone, they were literally building a new computing platform that BlackBerry completely ignored. BlackBerry had all the data that they needed, the signals were there, but they were just operating with zero outer focus. And they couldn't see the pattern. And this is crazy because like during my research of like writing this and actually like thinking of like this whole video, and like when I had the epiphany to combine all of these ideas to make this video, and when I had it myself, I was actually so curious because I still have like my old Blackberries from when I was in junior high. Like my first cell phone was a BlackBerry 9620 or 9320, something like that. It's like a BlackBerry Curve. And like my mom had the BlackBerry Bold. I even had the Z10 and the Q10 later on because I actually did like BlackBerry so much. But here's the thing. At a certain point, like in their heyday, I think it was 2007 or 2008, which was the peak of BlackBerry's market cap, they were worth $80 billion, dude, with a B. I think right now they're at a market cap, like their share price has dropped from $238, I think it was in 2007, all the way down to $4 now. And at their lowest, it had dropped to $2, which was like, they went from an 80 billion market cap to what is now at $4, a $1.67 billion market cap, to at their lowest point, which was like a $500 million market cap. That just blew my mind. Imagine losing $79 billion, like holy shit. So this is outer focus failure at the corporate level, right? And it happens to people too in their careers and their investments and relationships. You get so locked into your current reality that you miss the system shifting around you. In 2004, the Indian Ocean tsunami killed over 200,000 people across 14 countries. I think Sri Lanka was one of the bigger countries that was hit. And it was one of the deadliest natural disasters in recorded history at that time. I remember learning about this in elementary school. However, there was a tribe, an indigenous group living on the Andaman Islands that almost lost no one. Not because they had technology, they didn't, literally nothing. Not because they had satellite warning systems, they didn't have those either, right? They survived because of outer focus. Generations of observation had taught them to read the natural world as a system. In the days before the tsunami, the elders noticed that the behavior of the ocean, so like they were noticing that the fish were acting strangely, the dolphins and whales were swimming further out into the ocean rather than staying near the shore. The birds had gone quiet. The tide was behaving in a way that elders recognized. So they got on their boats and they actually moved deeper into the water, far offshore. They watched as a tsunami crashed the coastline and all of them survived. Just think about that. They had no seismographs, they had no weather apps, they had no government alerts, but they developed such a deep pattern recognition, such refined outer focus that the natural world was communicating with them and they could hear it, right? So like that's crazy to think about. We have completely lost that, not because we're less intelligent, but because we've outsourced our pattern and recognition to technology and stopped paying attention to the world itself. And there's a part of Daniel Goleman's book where he's talking about how like imperialism itself stripped that away from a lot of people, right? Because like storytelling was a way of having and building this outer focus. Like the ancestors taught, the elderly taught their youngs, and the young carried it forward. In every business, there's exploiters and then there's explorers. So exploiters take what exists and they make it better. They optimize, they refine, they execute, and it's not a bad thing. It's how most great companies operate for the most of their life. It requires outer focus to know when exploitation stops working and exploration becomes necessary. Again, this is where BlackBerry messed up, right? Like they kept trying to hone in on this thing that was stopping to work because the whole industry was changing. If they would have just taken a step back and had this outer focus, they would have realized that cell phones and computing, all of this is changing. They need to focus on that, right? So explorers venture into uncharted territory. They're the opposite. They're the trailblazers. They're disruptors. They see a pattern nobody else has recognized and bet on a future that hasn't arrived yet. So Steve Jobs was like the ultimate explorer. His vision for Apple was that every action should be achievable in 3 clicks or less. And I actually didn't even know this until I researched this deeper. Apparently that's how like Mac OS is made. Like you can click the mail app, click compose, type, and send. You literally did the task in 3 clicks. That's crazy. Like I never thought about that. But that's outer focus thinking. Not what do consumers want right now, but what's the future of human computer interaction and how do we build toward it before anyone else? So the best individuals and the best companies know when to exploit and when to explore. That awareness requires outer focus. Another example, Ben & Jerry's, a company with all 3 of these focuses. Brownies and Ben & Jerry's ice cream comes from a bakery in a low-income neighborhood in New York. I think it was a part of the Bronx. And when people asked Ben & Jerry's leadership why they don't outsource to a cheaper supplier, pretty much said that we don't make brownies for the consumer, we make brownies to create jobs for our employees, right? And so think about what that requires. Inner focus, a clear sense of values and purpose, strong enough to resist the pure profit motive. Other focus, so genuine empathy for their workers, not as line items on a budget, but as humans whose lives are connected to this company's choices. And outer focus, the awareness that businesses don't exist in a vacuum. Companies are embedded in communities and societies, and what they do ripples outward in many ways over the generations. And here's the thing, your ability to focus doesn't just affect your personal success, it affects everyone around you. Every decision you make as a parent, as a business owner, as a citizen, as a consumer ripples outward. The world your grandchildren's grandchildren will live in is being shaped right now by the quality of attention we collectively bring to our choices. We are living in a world built by ancestors whose names most of us will never know, and we are building a world for descendants who don't exist yet. Focus is how you build it well. So most people are outsourcing their attention to notifications, to outrage loops, to whatever is the loudest, right? But if you develop inner focus, outer focus, and other focus, you will see what others miss. You will connect with people in ways others can't. If this hit you hard and you're gonna implement some of these, share it with somebody who needs it, comment below. Thank you for tuning in. See you guys in the next one.